German Chancellor Angela Merkel's got an icy welcome in the Czech capital as crowds gathered to protest against her open-door migration policy. On top of all of this, police reportedly arrested a man after a suspected assassination attempt on the German leader. The armed suspect allegedly tried to infiltrate her motorcade during her Prague trip. Merkel was in the Czech capital for only 24 hours to visit with the country's prime minister. Well, some Czech officials also share the anger against Merkel's migration strategy, with the Czech president slamming it as nonsense and misguided humanism. His views have found support in neighbouring Austria as well. The country's defence minister strongly criticising the Chancellor's comments in favour of migrant workers.
This is not a policy if Europe stays here in agony and sticks its head in the sand. The "we can do it" policy is irresponsible and counterproductive, as it harms Europe as a whole, including Austria. Austria is not a waiting room for Germany.
Well, fears of rising migration and the spread of Islam on the continent certainly worrying some Europeans. And the debate on the Muslim full-body burkini swimsuit continues in France, with the subject prompting divisions within the French government itself. But Prime Minister Manuel Valls backed the initiative to ban the burkini in coastal areas.
The burkini to me is a symbol of women's enslavement. They are signs of self-proclamation of Islam. It's a minority of people. We always have to remind ourselves. This move is to ensure that we defend the Republic.
One of the recent polls has shown that the majority of French people support the initiative to ban burkini swimsuits from all the country's beaches, with only 11% of respondents opposed to it. We discussed the matter with Tony Bugle from the English Democrats and Catherine Shakdam from the Shafakna Institute for Middle Eastern Studies.
It's incredible to me that we are criticizing, for example, Saudi Arabia quite often for the way that they treat women, but we're now realizing that the French Republic or even, other countries in Europe are now following, almost the same narrative by telling women how they should behave, except that this time we have to take off our clothes to please society or to express our, our republican values or prove to France that we are so democratic. This is absolutely ridiculous. Can we please go back to the real issues? Can we please go back to fighting terrorism and radicalism and preventing those psychos to come and take over? Because this is what you're talking about. Again, Islam is not a nationality, so you can't actually close your border to it.
To compare what France is doing in comparison to, say, Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia, a woman's liable to be stoned to death. I don't think they're going to stone anyone to death in France. Now, that said,
no, you're forcing a woman to face the batons and tear gas or whatever.
What they've done is they've applied a rule. They have applied a rule. It's a temporary ban.
They forced her to strip herself. It's insulting.
It's a temporary ban. Look, in this country, I cannot go and purchase fuel wearing a crash helmet. I cannot go into a bank wearing a balaclava. I cannot walk around wearing a mask. That is part of the laws of my country, which I will respect because they are the laws of my country. Now, those rules have been applied. It's a temporary rule. And I think that, in a way, by making a bigger issue out of it, you're actually also feeding into the extremism that's flourishing.
If I can put a question to both of you, perhaps both of our guests today, where is the line drawn in this law, though? I mean, I've seen images on social media comparing women in burkinis to nuns in religious dress on the beach, to people in wetsuits, which look actually very similar to burkinis, by the way, these wetsuits, just made of a different material. I mean, where is discretionary power, common sense and logic going to come in here? Will a nun also be forced to undress? Will somebody wearing a wetsuit be forced to undress?
I've been out in Islamic countries, and I've watched women either go swimming in the full burqa or they've gone swimming in a swimming costume. So it is a choice, and I get that it's a choice, and I understand that it's a choice. But if I am going to go to a country and they say to me, look, we've got this temporary ban on at the moment, I know it might upset a few people, but do you know what? There's a reason for it. This is our reason for it. These are the rules. These are the rules that are applied. We have to respect them. Otherwise, where do we draw the line?
I suppose, though, Tony, even though rules are rules and laws are laws, people do have a right to protest them if they do feel strongly about them. And this has caused a pretty big uproar, hasn't it, all over France and indeed wider. Catherine, what do you think about this?
Everybody has a right to protest about anything.
Absolutely. Catherine, what do you feel about these lines? Where will this line be drawn?
I'd like the line to be drawn at, at freedom of religion and at civil liberties. I would like the line to be drawn at human rights. I would like the line to be drawn, at the idea that women have a right to choose. And yes, the burkini is not, is not a necessity in Islam. It's not a requirement. But then again, it's a free choice. Women need to have the choice and stop associating the burkini with Islam. I mean, plenty of women choose to wear it just because if they have skin cancer, there's plenty of reason why a woman would like to choose, to wear it covering their head or not. We need to just stop thinking that, your guest is trying to say that he doesn't agree with it, but then again, he still agrees with it because people have to, follow the rules. But what if those rules are absolutely undemocratic? Then call it what it is and just say that you want to live in a country which is completely totalitarian and tells people what to do. If you want to live under a police state, then that's fine, but please call it what it is and stop being hypocritical about it and pretend that it's a democracy. A democracy means that you have civil liberties. I would like to think that women have the right to choose. No, I'm talking actually. I'm sorry, as a woman, I just find it profoundly insulting.
But first of all, could you please address me as a woman? I happen to be a woman.
Telling me how women need to behave. Just because in Islamic country, this is how they do it.
1:15 here in Moscow. Thanks for joining us. John Kerry, Sergei Lavrov, right now behind closed doors having critical talks on Syria at their venue in Geneva. Details after the break.